Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday. I guess it's not just when Dwarren's here. We're having pre-show conversations that make us late to get started, but here we are. We're live, kind of doing some last minute things, and wanted to jump on now. So here we are. We are live if you're a business owner, or maybe you are an aspiring business owner and you're looking for a place to come that understands you, that can help you point you in the right direction, you're in the right spot. So the Business Unscripted podcast, what we're here for is we're here to help you not only learn from our experiences, things that we've gone through in our business or things that we've helped our clients through, but we're also here to just, kind of bring new topics to light, and hopefully one or two points every episode will give you some insights on things that, can kind of push you forward and, give you some insights into your own journey. So with that, grab your favorite cup of Joe or your water and let's jump into the show today. So it's just me. You just get to hear my lovely voice all show. And I apologize if, I'm doing some things to kind of, share it and get the information out in the background here, because we don't have a producer or anything. It's just me. So Dwarren is doing some house hunting today. And so hopefully he was able to find a good spot and a good location for them to move. So Dwarren, we wish you luck there. And when I was kind of thinking, what do I want to focus on today? And really it came down to, I wanted to share, I guess, what I call like my 10 don'ts in business. And I guess some of these could even apply to your own life, right? And so what we're going to do is I kind of was, written down some of the things that I've gone through that have maybe held me back temporarily, that I wanted to share with you, and maybe you can learn from those and apply them into your situation as well. So let's jump into that. So the first one that initially kind of stood out for me is don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. I think far too many people try to stay in that bubble, where you're used to it. And I think especially as new business owners or entrepreneurs, especially if you've come from the corporate world, you're definitely in that mindset of having to get everything done. And as we've said it in the past in prior episodes, with the Michael Gerber's the ebook, right? It's the technician mindset. And so that's our comfort zone. We're used to doing all that technical work, the day-to-day in the grassroots, in the grass, in the weeds type of work. And ultimately, the issue becomes is that you don't give yourself enough time to start thinking about the future. So going back to Michael Gerber's book, he mentions the technician is one mindset, right? It's important. You're there, especially as you're getting started, you kind of spend more of your time there, but you can't let the other two mindsets that you need to have in order to be successful, kind of be put on the back burner. And the next one is kind of like your managerial mindset. So this is where you start thinking of, what is my, corporate structure going to look like when I grow and when I get to where I want to be? What do my policies look like? Am I holding, do you have somebody in that you're working with you right now? Am I holding them accountable? Am I treating myself and giving myself the opportunity to be a manager to the people that are in my organization? And then finally, the third mindset is that entrepreneurial mindset. And that's like the visionary. And that's where like you give yourself the opportunity to dream forward, right? Envision what you really want to accomplish out of your business. And if you spend too much time in the technician, you're spending too much time in your business. You're spending too much time trying to just get things done. And ultimately what ends up happening is if you continually do that, you end up just owning a job. And you don't want to, that's not why you got into business. You don't want to own a job. I mean, I guess, maybe some of you might just want to have a job, just being able to work for yourself. But I think the majority of us, when we get into business, we have this vision of something that we want to accomplish, a vision of something that we want for our lives. And if you don't give yourself the opportunity to be in the manager and the entrepreneurial, you'll find that you can't actually make that, and it can't actually, come true. So give yourself the opportunity. So don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone, which is that technician, and be able to, kind of be more in that managerial and be more in that entrepreneurial mindset. And, comfort zone could also mean, putting yourself in situations that you might not have even thought that you could. And to get started, sometimes that's just networking, right? Just having a conversation with somebody that you've never met with. That's something that can be outside of your comfort zone. Or maybe it's, maybe going for a larger client than maybe you're typically used to. Step outside your comfort zone. That's where kind of that growth, that growth happens. You know what I mean? So that's the first don't. So don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. And with that kind of brings me to the second don't, and that's don't be afraid to fail, right? Test your limits. So for me, I'm going through this right now, and it's a learning experience. So I'm with the, obviously the invention of AI and the coding assistants and everything. I'm working on a specific program for myself, right? And there's a lot of failure. And I think if I was in a past version of myself, I probably wouldn't have even gotten started. One, because it was definitely something that I've never done in my entire life, right? I've never picked up a coding book. I've never understood what all of that means. And what I'm learning right now, I had a big sort of, I guess you can call it a haha moment, or oh God, I can't believe I wasted so much extra time over the last 2 weeks. When I realized that a lot of the systems that I was using potentially and did integrate together. And it was just because I was not experienced, right? So I didn't know to think about it. So I was just kind of doing everything manually for 2 weeks. And I just think back now, holy cow, how much time could I have saved, trying to fix all the different versions when they could have just been talking to each other the whole time. And so that's the same thing in your life. And in your business, there's going to be that you're going to come out with a new program. You're going to have a conversation, multiple hundreds of conversations with people that are going to fail. But what you learn from that is the growth. So if you see failure or as an opportunity instead of an end situation, that's where growth actually, happens, right? And so don't be afraid to face failure head on. It's something that I embrace now. I look forward to it. I know, not everything you do the first time is going to be successful. And if you're comparing yourself to the people that did get successful after the first time, there's, 99.99% of people that don't have success the first time. And for me, one of the things that kind of truly, helped me kind of get over that was, seeing somebody that you want to emulate, right? That's successful, and then actually going and trying to find their real story, and listening to their real story and realizing, how it relates to a lot of people in my situation, for sure, where they had stumbling blocks, they had failures. You think back even to, like Thomas Edison, the biggest, 10,000 tries at the light bulb before he actually, accomplished his goal. Could you imagine? Are you willing to? Are you truly willing to fail 10,000 times to get to your goal? And if you're not, where are you willing to fail until? Is it one time? I hope not. I hope not, because it's if you're only giving yourself one failure or one stumbling block, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to reach that goal that you're setting for yourself, whether it's in your business, in your life, etc. So don't give yourself once. Don't even give yourself 10. You're gonna fail in many things along your journey. A lot of people, say get rid of the word failure. I agree with it. Consider that it's a learning opportunity. It's your biggest. It's as soon as you can kind of make that shift and be like, okay, this didn't go as I expected. How can I change? Right? What can I make different? What can I learn? from this opportunity? What feedback did I get that I can grow and change for the next time? And then be quick at making that adjustment. So don't be afraid to fail. Test your limits. That's where your true kind of growth happens, right? And the third one, so don't stop learning. I think, and I've had this conversation with many people, even when I was in corporate, so many people feel like they're at their peak, and they stop, kind of learning new information, learning new opportunities or new ways to do things that they do on a regular basis. And my biggest, kind of pet peeve with that is that's when you're passed over, because the world is ever evolving. And if you're not willing to continue to evolve and move forward with the world, then you're just going to get passed by. And yes, you may be at the top of your game for a month, 6 months, a year. But the true reality is that you're going to get passed by very, very quickly. If you feel like you don't want to keep learning in your business, in your life, whatever it may be. So that's number 3. Number 4, and I think this is a big one for a lot of people, was for me. Don't accept anybody else's vision of your life as the vision that you have to accept for your life. So many people are going to want to give you their opinion, want to tell you how you should do things. And ultimately, nobody but you knows what you're truly heading for, what you're truly trying to accomplish. There's going to be people along your way that are going to support you, that are going to point you in the right direction. But ultimately, don't accept, somebody else's vision of your life as the way that you have to live your life. I think all too often, it's difficult for people that aren't, especially like now I'm speaking to like the entrepreneurial journey, right? To the business owners. It is very easy for people who are not in that same mindset, on that same journey, to try to project what they feel is safe and what they feel is the way that you should be treating and living your life onto you whenever you try to have a conversation with them, especially about maybe things that are going on in your business. And so the biggest thing that you could do is, if you are having some of those conversations, is to listen, but then, kind of don't take it personally, right? Your vision for your life is never going to align with anybody else's vision of what they think, right? They have their own beliefs, they have their own sort of mindset. And so what you need to do is basically, kind of just say, I appreciate it, but I'm going to keep living my life. I'm going to keep pushing forward. That's the number one thing. So far, what we've talked about, right, is don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to test your limits. Number 3 is don't stop learning. Don't stop having that willingness to grow. And then number 4 is don't accept anybody else's vision for your life as your own. And so what we're doing on today's episode is we are going over what I call the top 10 don'ts for business owners and for life. And so I'm kind of going through those lists. And so before we kind of jump into the rest of the list, if you are a business owner and you're interested in kind of joining us for an upcoming episode, I will have a link down below where you can request a future episode that you want to join us on. All we kind of ask here is that you have some sort of educational, kind of piece that you want to give to business owners, right? You want to share. So whether it's information on a specific strategy, specific update, anything that is within your realm, we're going to give you some opportunity to kind of share that. And the idea there is that we want this to be informational. But also, if you're going through maybe 1 or 2 kind of specific maybe obstacles in your business that you'd love to talk through here live on the session, we ask that you kind of share that as well, and we'll go over those on the session. So if you're a business owner and you're interested in joining us in a future episode, there's going to be a link down below. Feel free to click on that, and you can request to join us in a future podcast. We're looking forward to having some business owners join us. We got I think the next 2 weeks are filled right now, but you can definitely start filling that up if that's you. So I look forward to talking with you on the podcast. Next, so we've talked about the first four. Next is don't allow, wow, this is one, and I wrote this morning, it's totally me. Don't allow the internal negative speak, right, to cloud your perception of reality. And this speaks to life this in general, not just business owners. And so all too often as humans, we have the basis, right, of being negative. Like it's our default in our mindset. Our default for as a business owner, or sorry, as a human, right? Our default as a human is to be negative. And we have to kind of train ourselves, at least the majority of us, we have to train ourselves to be more positive. And with that, our thoughts, and I'm a true believer in this, right? Our thoughts form the reality that we see around us. So if you're always thinking negative, if you're always having that negative self-talk, woe is me, or I'm a failure, or I'm never going to accomplish anything, that's what's actually going to happen, and it's only going to cause it to spiral down even further. And I speak this from truth. Like this was me. I was a negative thinker for the longest time. And if anything small happened, I would go down that spiral, and I would be there for weeks, right? Until I was able to kind of break free from it. And even now, like it's not like it's just gone forever. Like I was just talking earlier this week, right? Part of this is that like imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is a true thing, whether you're a business owner who's trying to help people, right, with challenges and obstacles, or you're in the corporate world and maybe you just got, a promotion into a leader. The imposter syndrome is true no matter where you are. I experienced, I was feeling a little bit, earlier this week, kind of going through that, well, maybe I'm not where I'm supposed to be. Maybe I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. And, being able to talk that out and realizing, that's just a temporary negative kind of self-talk. It's true that it's a limiting factor. And if you let yourself, right, and so don't accept that vision of you, don't accept that negative version of thoughts in your head to form your reality. You're going to have them, address them, recognize them, and then convince and tell yourself that those thoughts are just thoughts. They're not beliefs. Because what I've learned through conversations, and I've worked closely with, I actually want to get to him on, Victor. He's one of my clients, but he's also a great guy around, kind of the mindset, the limiting belief factor. I had a breakthrough when I just worked with him, Victor, if you're listening to this, I want you to be on the show. But it's true. Beliefs, thoughts are not beliefs. But if you begin to believe your thoughts too often, they will become beliefs. So if you find yourself always having those negative thoughts and you find yourself only seeing negative in the world or whatever, it's probably because your thoughts have now become your beliefs. But you can break that belief by changing it, by telling yourself that that's not the true belief that I want to hold, and then reformatting it into the version of the belief that you want to have. So recognize that negative thoughts are going to happen, but don't make them the basis for your reality. Just think about, when you buy a new car, and this is, kind of a version of this, right? When you buy a new car, what happens for the next 6 months? You're like, man, I never realized there's this many cars on the road, right? Maybe you buy a new truck and you're like, man, I never realized there's this many trucks. I see them all the time. Well, it's because your vision, right? Your thoughts are on that truck. And so you see it more often. They were always there, but you're seeing it more often. Same thing. If you only think negative thoughts, you're going to see the negative more often. So if you can focus your thoughts more on positive, what you'll notice is that the more and more you do this, the more and more you'll see the positive things happening in your life, and you'll break that belief. Okay. So just don't let that internal negative speak form your reality, because in the end, it's not true. You have the power to think positively and actually grow and see things that are more in a better light than what we typically tend to think about in our life. Okay. Um, so, what I will say next, so that's number five. So, number six is don't ever stop moving forward. Small steps consistently actually beat larger leaps forward. I think far too many times we we're looking to make that large leap ahead. So we're looking to go from if you're a business owner, you're looking to go from 0 to 150, $200 million a year, kind of overnight. And ideally, what you're looking at is just try to get from maybe 0 to 5,000 a month. Like set small, consistent goals, because when you set the smaller goals on your path ahead, what you're going to find is that it's easier to attain, right? Small, consistent steps will always beat the large leaps that you potentially are trying to make in your business, in your life. So don't be afraid to be consistent, but then also just take smaller steps for yourself. Like that's ultimately the best way for you to be successful in business and in life, right? Um, Focus on being consistent. Don't focus on having to have these, big influxes of revenue or big influxes of change in your life or in your business. Because if you do that, kind of going back to the previous don't, you're just going to think negatively because you're not seeing that result. You're not seeing that outcome. And in the end, you'll give up or you'll get burnt out, et cetera, whatever, version of that may be. Which leads me to number seven, don't, the seventh don't. And that is don't compare yourself to social media. There's so many, there's so many gurus out there that like to flaunt their cash, right? Or their big planes. And in reality, most of those people are fake, right? It's crazy. Like if you actually go and like maybe search back 3 or 4 years, how many like lawsuits or um, issues have come up from those individuals moving forward. And so don't be afraid, or sorry, not don't be afraid. Don't compare yourself to them, but also don't compare yourself right now to the actual successful business owners as well, right? There's a lot of legitimate business owners that are out there. So, like Gary Vee or, there's tons of them out there. Grant Cardone, Alex Hermosi. There's all these successful business owners that are on social media as well. Don't compare yourself to them right now. Don't say, oh, wow, he's 45. I'm 45. I'm so far behind. I'm just never going to be there. You can't do that. What you can do, though, however, is instead of comparing yourself to your timelines, learn from their efforts and emulate them. So don't think, well, they're 45, I'm 45. Shit, I'm so far behind. I'm never going to make it, right? Or I'm 30 and Gary Vee, when he was 30, he had an $8 million business. I have nothing. I'm so far behind. I'm never going to accomplish that. You can't do that. What you can do is then you can start at 30 and emulate the activities that he did. And the beauty in today's world is that people who are 45, 50 now, it took them forever to do things that you guys can do now in months or even days, right? You starting right now, you have such a huge advantage over people that have been in business for 10 or 15 years that have grown something, because things are so like streamlined, right? AI helps you become 50 people, from one. They keep saying, I keep hearing out there that there's going to be a one-person billion-dollar company because they're going to be doing it through AI and they're going to be building it. And it could be out there. It could be you listening to this. I don't know. But that's like you have so much going for you if you are just starting now or you're newer in business right now. You have so much going for you that people that have been in business for 10, 15, 20 years have to fight, right? They had to fight, claw their way to get where they were. They didn't have, AI to assist them, or, outsourcing, or the internet. They built it right from scratch. 20 years, I guess they would have the internet. I'm kind of aging myself, but you know what I mean. You know what I mean? They had to grow it manually. There wasn't a lot of the capabilities and the offshoots and the support that we have now. So if you're just getting in the business now, or you're just getting started, don't, kind of going back to the don't compare yourself to the people that you're either your same age, or maybe you look at their journey when they were your age and they were so far ahead of you. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you can learn from those people and emulate their effort, emulate their consistency, emulate their path and their actions in your life today. And that's going to get you where you want to go. Who cares if you get it by the same age as them? That doesn't matter. Learn from them. Don't compare yourself to them. And so that's the seventh don't, is don't compare yourself to social media, whether it's these social media gurus that are flaunting their big planes and their cars and their money, or it's the social media, successful business owner. You don't need to be where they're at when they got there. You are going to get there when you were meant to get there on your journey. So don't think that you have to, be there when they do. Which leads me to the eighth don't. So the eighth don't is don't think too small. And in this specifically, when I was thinking about this, pre-show was around your goals. I have talked and kind of mentored a lot of people around their goal setting. And so many times they try to set goals that are too small, too attainable, right? And so don't be afraid to think big, right? So don't think too small, and don't be afraid to think big. And the biggest thing that I always talk about is, with goal setting, is we all know the SMART acronym, right? So specific, measurable. The A is my problem, right? Because in the SMART acronym, A is said to be attainable. And I don't like that word, because in business, when you're trying to grow, you're trying to level up, attainable is an attaboy. You're not looking to give yourself attaboys in business. You need to push yourself further, as we talked about in the, the first don't, right? You need to push yourself outside your comfort zone. Attainable goals aren't going to do that. So you need to change your goals if you're following the SMART acronym, because the other four are definitely relevant. But A, instead of attainable, needs to be ambitious. You need to set ambitious goals for yourself. All right. So don't set attainable goals, set ambitious goals. And then the other two, so R is relative, right? So it's relative to the path that you're on, especially with your business. And then T means there's a time restriction to it. And so just like so you want to go back, so you want to have specific, so many times I've heard people say, well, I just want more revenue, or I need more clients. What does that mean? That's not specific. Are you needing, because, 10 clients at $1 a client, is that what you're looking for? Because, you got to know what you're shooting for. So be specific. M, measurable. Again, I want to grow, or I need more revenue. Like, okay, again, what does that mean? Right? And it needs to be measurable. So many people talk about, they're like, well, I just want to improve my culture of my company. Well, how do you measure the culture of your company? And then you start breaking it down, right? And this is what you need to do with your goals. So instead of doing these vague, high level goals, and this could be, in your life or anything, think about it. What do I need to review, or what do I need to know, right, in order to attain that? And so to go back to the example, if you're going to, think through culture, then maybe it's your satisfaction scores of your employees through surveys. And so then your goal should be, we're looking to improve our satisfaction goals by 10 to 15%. Right? Maybe your previous goals, when we were talking about like the next acronym, right, the ambitious, maybe you've only seen 1 or 2% increases year over year for the last couple of years. And so now you're shooting for this ambitious goal of 10 to 15%. And the reason why, right, is now you have to start thinking differently, because you can get a 1 to 2%, increase in your culture scores, your satisfaction scores. So you're not going to change anything. You're not going to do anything differently. You're just going to keep doing the same stuff because you're like, oh, if my goal is to go 1 to 2% up, well, we've been doing that already. So I'll just keep doing what we've been doing, keep doing the same processes, and we'll expect it to go back up. But if you set a goal of, I wanted to improve 10 to 15%, now that requires you to, like, okay, what do we have to change? What do we have to do with our employees, our engagement, our feedback to our employees, our morale? What do we have to do differently in order to get that 10 to 15%? And that's the reason why you want to set ambitious goals, is because it requires you to think differently from the norm that you're doing on a day in and a day out basis. And then relative, right? Obviously, if you have employees, any company that has employees, they're your number one sort of resource. So you want to take care of them. So that I would say increasing the culture of your employees and of your business would be a relative goal. And then time restriction. So is it in 6 months? It is in a year. Because if you just leave it open-ended, anybody can come back and be like, well, we're not there in 6 months, but we'll just keep going. That's not goals. You want to give it some time restriction, right? And you can even break it down even into more, so maybe you say in the next 5 years, we want to be, a $5 million company. Okay, great. That's a 5-year goal. But how do you then break it down into the 12 month, the 24, the 36? Where should you be, right? And make sure you're pushing yourself even further down that path. So number 8 is don't think too small, especially in goal setting, especially in the vision of your future in your company. That's one of the other things that I always let people, I ask to a lot of people that I start working with specifically is where are you heading? What do you envision as the future of your company? And a lot of times people struggle with seeing that big, company that maybe they initially thought of, but they want to be modest. They don't want people to know that, they're trying to grow a $5 million company. And this is why the previous don't about number 4, don't let other people's vision become your reality. I've talked about that, right? And so kind of how this thinking small kind of relates to that, right? Is that, you're afraid that when you tell somebody that you're working to build the next $5-10 million company, they're going to be like, oh, that's impossible. Like, what are you doing that for? Right? Because you're worried about what other people think. And so don't think too small, right? Think of your future. Think of the business you're looking to grow and truly build it out. Don't hold anything back. It's a vision. Who cares? Don't think small when it comes to the future of your business, because the idea, as we just talked about with your goal setting, is that when you think big, it's going to require you to think differently about the next steps you need to take in your business, where you're going. So if you are looking to build $1 million, a $2 million, or a $5 million company, and you're at $50,000-$60,000 right now in income, you are going to have to think differently. What does it look like when you're $1 million company? Don't hold back. Like, draw out that company structure, draw out that vision, draw out the number of sales. How many clients do you have? What's your average, customer lifetime value? Because all of those things are going to drive decisions that you need to make today to start getting there. And when you think too small, maybe your ultimate vision is to have $1 million company, $1 million net company. But when you allow yourself, or you continue to think small, you're never going to get there, because you're just trying to think where you are today. Maybe you're trying to make small steps ahead in terms of goals, and that's, you may be like, Dave, you literally just said try to take small actions, not giant leaps, right? Here's the difference. Your goals should be giant leaps, right? They should be something that, if you attain it, it's a home run. You're in the clouds. The steps to get there, though, those are the small steps, right? And so this is why when you set those big, ambitious goals, you're not setting a time frame of 30 days to get to that big, ambitious goal. You're setting yourself a vision of 6, 12, 18 months, right? That's your goal. Now you can back that into today, and what small steps can you take? Because those small steps over time are going to get you to that goal. So I hope you can kind of see the difference there. So when we talk about building your vision is going to be a giant leap from where you are today. No matter what you're trying to do, even if you are a $5 million company, maybe you want to become a 20 or $100 million company. That is a giant leap from where you are today, but that's your future goal state. Now you need to break it down into more small, manageable steps, right? You're not going to go from 5 to 100 million overnight. One out of, every 100,000 businesses might, because they come up with a brand new, amazing, product, or it something takes off, but you can't count on that. So your success is going to come from what we talked about before about don't try to make giant leaps, be consistent and take smaller steps. So I hope you can kind of see the difference there, that, there is a big difference between goal setting that is giant leaps forward and your actions being smaller and not trying to be actionable to giant leaps forward. So let's recap really quick before we get into the last two. 1 second, real quick. Number 1, don't be afraid to step outside your comfort zone. Ultimately, so many people, and this was me for a long time, we talked about it, right? You want to do the technician. You want to do what you're comfortable with, especially when you came from, corporate world. I get it. I was there. Don't be, push yourself outside your comfort zone. That's where your growth is going to happen. Number 2, don't be afraid to fail. Test your limits, because when you start seeing failures or stumbling blocks as opportunities to grow, that's where you can begin to, kind of make that next step forward in your journey, make that next step forward in your career, in your business. Number 3 was don't stop learning, or you're going to get passed by. The world is constantly evolving. The world's constantly changing. And if you think that you know everything right now, it's only going to be 2 or 3 months before you're passed by. So always be willing to evolve, always be willing to learn. Number 4 is don't accept anyone else's vision for your life as your own reality and your own vision. You have your own vision that only you know what you're trying to accomplish. Nobody else is going to do that. So don't accept their vision of your life or their next steps for your life as your own. Number 5 is don't allow that internal negative speak to cloud your perception of reality. Okay. We're defaulting as humans to become negative thinkers. So if you consistently think about the negative, it's going to cloud the vision of your reality, right? Our thoughts become our reality. So, acknowledge the negative thoughts that you're going to think, but don't allow it to become a belief. Number 6 is don't ever stop moving forward. We just talked about that a little bit, right? Small, consistent steps over time is always going to beat the giant leaps forward that you try to take. So don't be afraid to take those small steps and don't ever stop moving forward. Number 7 is don't compare yourself to the social media gurus, right, that are flashing money and flashing all their cars and everything, or their planes. And then also with that, don't compare yourself to these successful business owners that maybe at your age right now were way farther ahead than you. But what you can do from those people is you can learn from those. You can take the steps, the actions that they've done, and recreate those in your life. Learn from them and move. And as we said, you have so much opportunity as a business owner now that those people didn't have when they were getting started. Take advantage of that. And number 8, don't think small, vision big. Set your goals big. We talked about the SMART acronym. So specific, measurable, attainable is the bad word, right? We want to use ambitious, relative to your future and your goal, and your, where you're heading. And then T is your time. So make sure that there's some sort of time restriction to it. And so that leads us into the last two. So hopefully, before we kind of get into those last two, if any one of these so far have been impactful to you, or maybe the last two is going to be impactful to you and you're listening to this, our goal here at Triumph Business Solutions is to serve and impact 1,000 business owners by the end of 2028. We're well on our way. We're just getting started, but that's my ambitious goal. We just talked about it. But my ambitious goal is to serve and impact 1,000 business owners by the end of 2028. So if you got a piece of information, maybe one of these notes helped you accomplish something in your business, helped you, maybe overcome something in your business, please share this video with your network, because you never know, there may be a business owner that could use learning from some of these don'ts, and it will help push them forward as well. But I appreciate you for listening. I appreciate you for being here. I know Dwarren, I speak for Dwarren and I, we love doing these shows because we've gotten messages about, some of the episodes and how impactful they were. We don't know who's going to be listening or when, but we definitely appreciate you being here. So if you could do us a favor and like the video wherever you're watching it or listening to it, make sure you're following along. So you're subscribed. We definitely want to see the followers. And then if you have any questions, you can share those down below at any time. And I apologize today if you're watching a live video. There's probably not more of the banners because I try to do producing and talking when I'm with Dwarren, and when I'm trying to talk all by myself, some of that stuff gets done by the wayside. So I apologize if the show quality is much worse when it's just me. But so with that, let's get into these last two. Number 9, don't take no personally. This is a big one for me. I had to learn this a lot. Whenever I felt no, I was like, well, what did I do wrong? Or it would feed kind of that imposter syndrome. I think for a lot of people it does. And what the ultimate thing that you can do is when you hear a no, great. Be confident in yourself. And this is where I've gotten in my career, right? I know that I have a service that I can provide to people that's going to help them overcome an issue. So there's one of two ways. Either one, when you hear a no, that individual, that business owner, that client, that customer, they're not experiencing that pain, right? They're not experiencing that issue. So them saying no has nothing to do with me. It's just because, they don't have that problem right now. Great, move forward. The other one is if I know that they've had the problem, right? I've had the conversation with them. They've expressed that pain to me, and they still have said, nah, I'm just gonna, keep moving forward, or I don't need that, I don't need that help right now. Now it's probably on me as the business owner to look at maybe the conversations and evaluate what can I have done differently. Have I set the conversation up correctly? Have I broken the pain point down enough to where they can see how it's holding them back versus where they could be? Have I not shown the value, right? Those are the opportunities that you can take and learn from when you know that somebody has the problem, but they still refuse to say yes. Now it's on you as a business owner to say, okay, what can I do better? Because we have the service, we have that support, we want to help them, but we can't make them, right? You can't force somebody to do business with you unless it was legal to kind of go to your customer's head and kind of hold a gun to their head and say, okay, you're going to sign the contract, which is not legal. Other than that, you have to do a good job, kind of having that conversation, showing the value, showing the outcome. And the biggest revelation here, when you're thinking of the second part to hearing no, is, lead with emotion, right? Lead with pain when you're having the conversations. Because far too many times we try to focus on our benefit or the service and the outcome and what we're going to do or the hours we're going to save them, right? People buy on emotion. They don't buy on logic, right? They buy on emotion, and then they reason with logic about why the purchasing decision was right. So lead with emotion, lead with pain, right? Because ultimately, just like a doctor, we want to help alleviate people's pain. So whoever your ideal client profile is, what are their pains? What are their obstacles? So if you're hearing no and you know that people have pains or you know that they have obstacles, are you focusing too much on the logical side of the conversation versus the pain side of the conversation? And how can you make a change? And that's where you can learn. So, don't take no personally. This is number 9, right? Don't take no personally. It's one of two ways, more often than not. The first is that they didn't have the problem that you proposed that you are going to help them solve. Great. There's no personal attack there. And then the second place is if you know that they have the problem and they refuse to kind of do business with you still, you need to learn as an opportunity, how can you improve what you're doing better? Where can you focus? How can you have the conversations more effective, right? And so don't take them personally, because once kind of take that step back, move that personal sort of attack, that's where you can make improvements as well. And then finally, don't feel like you have to do everything alone. In business, especially if you're just getting started, too many people waste time. And what do I mean by that? Time is your personal number one resource, right? It's finite. Everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. Nobody gets an extra 2 hours because they're more successful than anybody else. You have the same 2 hours, same 24 hours, not 2 hours. So don't feel like you have to do everything yourself, meaning don't spend time wasted with your weaknesses, with things that aren't adding value to your life, to your business, right? So if you have a weakness, you have something that is not not enjoyable, find ways to either outsource it or partner. By doing that, you spend more time on your strengths. You spend more time doing the things that you enjoy. There's plenty of opportunities out there for you to outsource your weaknesses and focus on your strengths. So many times I've had conversations with people that they're focused on their weaknesses. They're spending way too much time doing things that, one, aren't leading them towards the path that they want to, which is why it is important for you to think, right, as we talked about earlier, think, what is your future state? Where are you? If you are not focused on that, meaning you're not focused on your strengths and leading you towards that vision, you're spending too much time on your weaknesses, you're only holding yourself back. And I've talked about it on this podcast before, right? The number one thing, the number one example of this that I always kind of refer back to, that I think about, there's plenty of other examples, is the Henry Ford, right? If he spent so much time trying to figure out how to build the engine, right? Or how to, all the stuff that he was weak at, would you think we'd have the Ford company that we have now? No, he didn't spend time on his weaknesses. He spent time on his strengths, and he brought people around him that had all that knowledge in all the areas that he was weak to build a motor company. You have to think about that yourself. And a lot of times, of course, it's not going to be employees right when you're starting, but think of who's your circle. Who do you go to? Do you have a group of trusted people that you can go to that can, offshoot your weaknesses? And a lot of times it could be in a mastermind group. It could be in, a joint venture partnership. It can be in any sort of way that you want to develop it, but find ways to, supplement your weaknesses, outsource, partner, whatever it may be, but stop spending all your time on your weaknesses. That's the last one. So you don't have to do everything alone. You can partner and you can outsource. So I hope the top 10, it's not even top 10. None of these are in specific order. I was just, when Dwarren let me know today that he wasn't going to be here, I was like, what do I want to talk about? And these don'ts kind of popped in my head. So they're not in any specific order. They're not like this one's more important than the other. Ultimately, some people are going to struggle with some of these than others. And so it's specific to your situation. So think through, give it a listen. Okay. And if you're not even in business, or you are in business, these things can also apply to your life. A lot of these things can apply to your life on top of your business. So I hope one or more of these were impactful to you. I love doing these episodes. I love teaching. I love adding value. So if you're here, I appreciate you. Thank you for watching. If you haven't and you missed the first part, and again, today we talked about 10 of the don'ts that you should be focused on doing in your business and in life. So hopefully if you go back and you watch those, one or two of those will be impactful to you. And if you made it to the end, I appreciate you. We love you. I know Dwarren and I love you. If you can help us, again, we're trying to reach and impact 1,000 business owners by the end of 2028. And so if you got a piece, maybe one or two of these don'ts meant something to you, share this video with your network. You never know, there might be a business owner that is going to see it because you shared it, and some of these things may impact them. I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing. Until then, we're here every Friday. If you're a business owner and you want to join one of the podcasts, down below is a link. You can schedule a future session. You can join us. We'll be interested in kind of having you on, talking through some, what you do, what it is, your business is, your support, and how you help people along with maybe one or two obstacles that you're facing in your business today. So until then, I hope you guys all have a wonderful and fantastic weekend. We're here every Friday, 8:15 a.m. We love you all. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and we'll talk to you and see you in the next one.